Hello, my name is Bailey Turkle, and today I'm going to be looking at possible miscommunications and improving communications within the workplace at the Regal Entertainment Greenwood Plaza 12 location. The following presentation outlines and analyzes communication errors within the workplace and possible solutions for how to improve the overall communication and the efficiency of the staff. After some research, I have found that the staff members and the managers are at odds with each other and they have difficulty working with one another. The main reasons for this are that both management and employees are underinformed, the employees feel undervalued, and there is no effective system for management to hear the employee input and suggestions. Some of the possible solutions that I have come up with to fix these problems are creating an electronic schedule, creating weekly memos for the employees, more frequent staff meetings, creating better quality employee incentives, organizing the downward communication, and creating a more effective upward communication system. The first reason and the main reason why I think that there's so many communication problems at the Greenwood Plaza location is that there's just a lack of information. Employees don't know what managers know, and obviously that's for good reason, but there's a lot of information that managers need to pass down to employees, and there's no system for doing that right now. There aren't any memos for the employees, whereas managers do a nightly memo to each other to catch everyone up on the events of the day, and for the closing managers to inform the opening managers of any changes or anything they need to be aware about. There is no such memo system for employees, however. So employees that need to know something for the next day, there's no way for them to get that. If the closing employees need to tell something, they have to rely that the managers will inform the opening managers the next day, and then those opening managers will inform the opening employees. That almost never happens. For example, yesterday I went into work and I was supposed to come in at 11, at least that's what it said on my schedule. I was supposed to be there at 11 a.m. till 6 p.m. My manager called me 2 days before and said, "Oh, by the way, you don't have to come in until 11:45 a.m." So I did not show up until 11:45 a.m. Well, the opening manager of yesterday didn't know that, and so they called me at 11 o'clock and asked where I was, and I had to explain to them that another manager called me and told me not to come in until 11:45. That all could have been avoided if there was simply a memo that everybody got saying these are the changes. That way everybody was informed and nobody was calling around trying to figure everything out. Another reason there's a lack of information is that there are very limited employee meetings. Right now, we only have one meeting every 6 months. That is not nearly frequent enough for as much as policies and procedures change at Regal. At my other job that we used to have, we used to do employee meetings once a week. Now, that was a lot easier considering it was a dorm and everybody lived on site, and so once a week is probably too frequent for Regal considering like not everybody can make it once a week and it's very hard to schedule some time that everybody's available at the same time every week. But we could at least do something once a month, and they wouldn't have to be mandatory meetings because there would be memos that would go out, and if you did for some reason miss the meeting, you would be able to be updated. Another reason that there's a lack of communication is that the employees at Regal just feel undervalued. Employees that don't want to work for you and don't feel like you value them aren't going to want to work very hard. They're not going to want to put a lot of effort into it. And especially because it feels like Regal doesn't want employees. I mean, we work a minimum wage job, and we were told that if they could pay us less, they would. That doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel like your employer wants you to work for them. It feels like they need you to work for them, and they're just grudgingly letting you. It's not a very good feeling, and it's not very motivating either. One of the ways that we could combat this um, undervalued feeling is that we could just provide better employee incentives. Right now, there's little to no incentives for employees. So Regal has implemented this MVP program that basically there's a punch card and you get 12 punches per card, and every time you complete a card, you get a little prize. That sounds pretty great, except that the prizes are really bad. The prizes are terrible, and they're pretty much from the dollar store, and they don't make me feel like I've been worth my time, especially since getting punches on your card is really difficult to do. And since nobody cares about it, nobody tries to do any of the work to get punches on the card. Another way that employees feel undervalued is unfairly cutting hours on the schedule. So we're supposed to work by law, we're part time, so we have to work an average of under 30 hours, and we can work up to 40 hours in 1 week. But our average has to be under 30. Well, some employees are getting 27 hours to 29 hours, and other employees are getting 13 hours. Now, I understand that sometimes people's availability limits them from getting their up to their full 30 hours, but there have definitely been people, and this has happened to me included, there have been people that their hours were supposed to be up to 30 and they were available for more than 30 hours, but they were only scheduled 10 to 15. Well, especially for college students who are trying to make a rent check at the end of the month and trying to pay for cars and trying to pay for gas, and you can't work 15 hours a week. My job does not want me to get a second job because they don't want me to lose their availability, but I'm going to have to if they don't give me hours. And they don't seem to understand that. They don't seem to understand that you can't put people on 15-hour shifts if you're going to put everybody else on 30-hour shifts. If you're going to cut hours, you have to cut them across the board. Everybody has to lose hours. You can't just cut one person's hours every week. That's just not fair. It really hurts people's paycheck, and especially for people that are trying to use that paycheck to pay a lot of bills and then have to use that paycheck, it's not fair. It's not like this is going into our savings account. This is what we live off of, and it's just not fair. At Regal, there is not a system for upward communication. In most effective businesses, you want to have downward communication, you want to have horizontal or lateral communication, and you want to have upward communication. Upward communication provides feedback for managers so that they know how employees are doing. It also provides things like progress reports or updates so that they know how the business is being run from the employee level. At Regal, there is no such thing. Managers have no idea what's going on with the employees, and upper management and corporate has no idea what's going on in the individual theaters. That is just really not good because there's no way for them to know about possible problems, and there's no way to come up with potential solutions for these problems because they don't know they exist. There's no formal communication system at Regal at all. So as I mentioned earlier, there's no downward system or lateral system as far as memos go, and there's no way for when management has a new procedure that needs to be implemented, they don't just collectively tell the staff at once. One person doesn't say all the information. It gets passed from one person to another, similar to the game of telephone. Well, like in the game of telephone, it doesn't work. Information gets lost from one person to another, and you don't get the same message by the end of the line. If there was an effective communication system and a formal communication system that was implemented and everybody followed, then the information that gets passed around would be a lot easier to interpret, and it would be a lot easier to implement. Right now, things that, new procedures that get implemented can take up to 2 weeks for the entire staff to know about and implement. My recommendations for this is that we create a communication system. We don't have one right now, and we need to just build one from the ground up. We need to have a platform where managers can send employees all the information they need for the entire week and possibly daily. And I think that should be implemented by a weekly email or a weekly, even Facebook group. I've definitely worked for companies that have used Facebook as a means of work communication. Now, they don't do it publicly on Facebook. They create a work like group chat page. And so any information that goes up just gets posted on there, and you can see who has seen it, who has not seen it. And so you know who to continue to inform about stuff. And also, we were required on those Facebook things to check in once a week on it so that you got all the information and you were supposed to like it if you've seen it. That's really easy, and everybody uses Facebook now. At least everybody at my work that I know has a Facebook, so it's not a really hard thing. If not, you just get an email. Everybody has an email. You need it, especially for the college or for the high school students that are applying to colleges. They need an email, and college students have an email already. You could easily just send everybody an email. It would contain the weekly schedule. It would contain any new policies and procedures that need to be updated, and it would contain any changes, like such as schedule changes or anything that would be different. If someone also, with an email, it might be more difficult, but with a Facebook page, definitely. If people need to switch shifts, right now managers aren't allowed to give out people's phone numbers, so if you don't have it at the time that you need to call them, you're just out of luck. If there was a Facebook page, though, you could post if you need a shift change, and people could easily work on there. I've definitely worked with that before, and I think it's pretty effective. Another thing I think we need is more staff meetings. Again, I think once a week would be too frequent, especially since it's really hard to find a day or a time of the week that everybody has available, but at least once a month. And if it's once a month, they don't have to be mandatory because you would again get the update online. And if they're not mandatory, it's a lot easier for people to schedule around. Employee incentives are far and few between right now, and the few that we do have are just awful. All the employees hate them, and we don't even work for the incentives. It's not worth it. We more work for what we get are called GEM scores, and they're customer ratings of us, and we more work for those because they look better than a punch on your card because the incentives are just terrible. Well, if we have better quality incentives, employees will feel more valued and more wanted, and employees will work harder. I think by finding the holes in the communication lines and creating new lines as a staff, we can definitely work together as staff and management instead of being at odds with each other like we are right now. All it would take is just implementing actual communication.